Imagine a purple dinosaur that promised love and friendship, but left invisible scars on millions of children around the world. A children's show that should be pure innocence, but hides disturbing secrets the entertainment industry never wanted you to know. Today, I'll reveal the shocking truth behind Barney, the phenomenon that traumatized an entire generation. If you want to discover what really went on behind the scenes of this nightmare disguised as a childhood dream, subscribe to the channel now, because what you're about to hear will forever change the way you view your own childhood. And believe me, this is just the tip of the iceberg. It was 1992 when Cheryl Leach had an idea she believed would be revolutionary: to create a children's show based on unconditional love and eternal friendship. What began as a homegrown project in Dallas, Texas, would soon transform into the global phenomenon known as Barney and Friends. On the surface, everything seemed perfect. A giant purple dinosaur sang about cleaning up messes, sharing toys, and embracing differences. Children flocked to the television every morning, mesmerized by the vibrant colors and catchy tunes that stuck to their minds like glue. Parents breathed a sigh of relief, finally seeing a show that didn't make them worry about the content. Barney was safe. Barney was educational. Barney was too perfect. But from the very first episodes, something strange began to happen. Pediatricians and child psychologists began receiving calls from desperate parents. Children who had previously slept soundly began waking up in the middle of the night, sweating and screaming. These weren't ordinary nightmares. They were specific, detailed visions of a purple dinosaur appearing in their rooms, smiling that never-changing smile. What intrigued experts most was the consistency of the accounts. Children from different states who had never met described the same disturbing experiences. The dinosaur that sang about love during the day transformed into an oppressive presence at dawn. And this was just the first clue that something much darker was going on behind that colorful and seemingly harmless facade. David Joyner was the first man to don the Barney costume, and his revelations years later were disturbing, to say the least. In interviews that the production team attempted to suppress, Joyner admitted that he developed specific spiritual techniques to connect with the character. He spoke of deep meditation rituals before each recording, about how he needed to empty his soul so that something greater could take its place within that costume. But Joyner wasn't alone in his obsession. Staff on set reported increasingly strange behavior. Actors playing the children began to develop a psychological dependence on the filming environment. Some refused to break character even after filming ended, maintaining those artificial smiles and speaking with the same robotic intonation that characterized the show. The production itself began implementing strange rules. No one was allowed to speak ill of Barney during filming, not even as a joke. Mirrors were removed from dressing rooms after several actors reported seeing distorted reflections while in costume. And then came the audio recordings that never aired. Sound technicians discovered anomalous frequencies in the original recordings. Sounds that weren't present during filming but mysteriously appeared in post-production. Whispers in languages no one could identify. Laughter that didn't belong to any of the actors on set. The crew began working reduced shifts, many reporting an oppressive feeling that persisted even when they were away from the studio. And then there were the accidents. Minor at first, but they became more frequent and stranger. Equipment that worked perfectly during testing would mysteriously fail during recordings with Barney. Lights would explode for no apparent reason, always during the most intimate moments of songs about love and friendship. What began as isolated reports soon turned into a silent epidemic. Child psychologists across the country began documenting a disturbing pattern. Children who watched Barney regularly developed symptoms that science still struggles to fully explain. Dr. Margaret Chen, a child behavior specialist at Stanford University, conducted an unofficial study in the late 1990s. She interviewed more than 200 families whose children exhibited extreme reactions to the show. The results were so alarming that she decided not to publish the full study, but the leaked fragments painted a terrifying picture. Children between the ages of 3 and 7 developed what Chen called perfect fantasy syndrome. They became obsessed with the idea that Barney was real and watching their every move. Some stopped playing alone, claiming the dinosaur didn't like it when they had fun without him. Others developed a paralyzing fear of sleep, swearing they could hear the show's theme song playing softly in their rooms in the wee hours of the morning. In Minnesota, 5-year-old Sarah stopped talking for 3 months after watching a specific episode about sharing toys. When she finally started talking again, she told her parents that Barney had explained to her that talking too much was selfish, and that good children listen more than they talked. The episode in question had never directly addressed this topic. The most disturbing case came from a daycare center in Ohio. 23 children watched a Barney marathon together one rainy afternoon. The next day, they all arrived at daycare singing the same song, but with slightly different lyrics. The lyrics were about going home with Barney forever. The strangest thing is that this version of the song had never been shown in any known episode. Parents began forming unofficial support groups, sharing strategies for dealing with what they began to call Barney addiction. Children who were banned from watching the show developed withdrawal symptoms that lasted weeks. They obsessively drew purple dinosaurs, even those who couldn't hold a pencil properly before being exposed to the show. Most disturbing was the personality shift. Naturally creative and independent children became extreme conformists, repeating mantras about love and friendship in a robotic fashion. They lost the ability to express anger or frustration, replacing all negative emotions with the fixed, artificial smile that characterized the program. When acousticians analyzed Barney's original recordings, they discovered something the entertainment industry had desperately tried to cover up. The songs weren't just catchy by chance. They were constructed using specific frequencies known to induce altered states of consciousness in young children. Dr. Robert Thurman, a neuroscientist who wished to remain anonymous, revealed that Barney's songs operated at a frequency of approximately 40 Hz, known as the gamma frequency. This frequency has the power to synchronize brain waves and can induce states of extreme suggestibility, especially in developing brains. Coincidence? Unlikely. But the most disturbing theory came from a group of parents calling themselves the Truth Seekers. They discovered that Barney's original footage contained layers of audio that could only be detected when the recordings were played back at specific speeds. Buried within the audio tracks were subliminal messages repeating phrases like, "You belong to me," and "Never leave me." David Joyner's obsession with spiritual practices began to make more sense when former employees revealed that he had studied child hypnosis techniques before accepting the role. Joyner allegedly believed he could program children to be more obedient and less argumentative through his performance. He saw the program not as entertainment, but as a tool of social conditioning. The most shocking theory suggests that Barney was a deliberate psychological experiment. Leaked documents from the production company indicate meetings with child behavior experts who were not listed as official consultants on the show. These experts had connections to government mind control research programs dating back to CIA experiments in the 1960s. Some theories border on the supernatural. Groups of parents reported that their homes became haunted after the introduction of Barney products. Toys that spontaneously played the theme song in the middle of the night, books that opened by themselves to the page with the dinosaur image, and a persistent feeling that something was watching children while they slept. The attached entity theory gained traction when independent mediums and psychics, who had never interacted with each other, reported the same vision. A dark, possessive energy that preyed on childhood innocence, using the image of a friendly dinosaur as a disguise. They described a presence that was not human but had learned to perfectly mimic the behavior patterns that children found safe and comforting. Regardless of which theory you choose to believe, one thing remains undeniable. Millions of children were affected in ways that conventional science still struggles to explain. What rose like a brilliant meteor soon began to fall like a shooting star burning in the atmosphere of public opinion. By the mid-2000s, Barney had transformed from a symbol of childhood love into a target of widespread cultural hatred. But this shift wasn't natural. It was orchestrated by a generation of children growing up and finally finding a voice to express the trauma they silently carried. The first manifestations came from schools. Teachers began reporting a strange phenomenon. Children who were once devoted Barney fans developed a violent aversion to the character as they grew older. It wasn't just a loss of natural interest. It was pure, visceral, inexplicable hatred. At birthday parties, it became common to see 8- and 9-year-olds destroying Barney plush toys with a violence that shocked the adults present. They talked about liberation and finally being able to make him stop smiling. Psychologists interpreted this as a healthy way to process trauma, but the intensity of their anger was disproportionate to a simple dislike of a children's show. The nascent internet became a battleground against Barney. Entire websites were dedicated to dark parodies and conspiracy theories about the show. Homemade videos showing the destruction of Barney merchandise spread like wildfire long before social media existed. It was as if an entire generation was performing a collective exorcism. Sales of licensed merchandise plummeted. Stores reported strange instances of children having panic attacks in the toy section when they saw Barney merchandise. Parents began avoiding anything related to the show, even without fully understanding why. PBS itself began to face pressure to pull the show. These weren't just complaints about quality or relevance. They were desperate pleas from parents who claimed the show was harming their children in ways they couldn't clearly articulate. The final blow came when former production employees began speaking publicly about the disturbing working conditions and the psychological effects the show had had on them. Some revealed they needed therapy to overcome their obsession with the character. Others admitted they developed phobias related to dinosaurs and the color purple that persist to this day. The truth about Barney is more disturbing than any conspiracy theory could suggest. Internal documents from the production company, obtained through a 2008 lawsuit, revealed that executives were aware of the show's adverse psychological effects as early as 1995, just 3 years after it began national broadcast. Psychiatric reports secretly commissioned by the production team confirmed that the techniques used in the show created psychological dependence in young children. The study, led by Dr. Alan Morrison, concluded that Barney operated as an audiovisual drug that altered children's natural patterns of emotional development. The most shocking revelation was that this was no accident. Internal emails revealed discussions about how to increase the show's addiction factor to ensure consistent viewership. Executives openly talked about creating brand loyalty through early emotional conditioning. They knew exactly what they were doing. David Joyner, the original Barney actor, finally broke his silence in an explosive 2019 interview. He revealed that psychologists hired by the production team instructed him on specific techniques for creating deep emotional bonds with children through the screen. He learned to modulate his voice, his movements, even his breathing, to induce states of artificial calm that masked a growing dependence. But the darker truth lay in the numbers. Data kept secret by the production team showed alarming rates of sleep disorders, separation anxiety, and obsessive-compulsive behavior in children who watched Barney more than 3 hours a week. The show wasn't just entertaining children. It was fundamentally altering their neurological development. The reason Barney finally went off the air wasn't a lack of viewership or changing tastes. It was a secret agreement with public health officials who threatened a federal investigation into the show's effects on child development. The production company agreed to gradually phase out new episodes in exchange for avoiding an official investigation that could have devastating legal implications. The executives knew they had created a monster, a program that masqueraded as educational while conducting unauthorized psychological experiments on millions of innocent children. They turned innocence into vulnerability and love into dependence. The generation that grew up with Barney wasn't traumatized by accident. They were traumatized by design. And that's the truth they never wanted you to know. Barney should represent everything good about childhood. Unconditional love, true friendship, emotional security. But for millions of people, this purple dinosaur became their first encounter with manipulation, with fear disguised as affection, with the devastating discovery that we can't always trust what we're told is safe. The truth about Barney is a grim reminder that innocence can be exploited, that trust can be weaponized, and that sometimes the most dangerous monsters are those disguised as saviors. An entire generation bears these invisible scars, often without even understanding why. If you've made it this far, it means you're ready to question other hidden truths from your childhood. Subscribe to the channel because next week we'll uncover the dark secrets of another classic you'll never be able to watch the same way again. And tell me in the comments, Which character from your childhood made you most uncomfortable? Your intuition may have been right all along. The truth always finds a way to come out. And now you know. Some lullabies are actually laments in disguise.